Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Messy Cook. This morning you're going to see I have a whole bunch of apples here and it's fall, so we're going to be doing some applesauce. We're going to be canning that for it to be shelf stable. So I've washed all these apples. These are a couple more that I had for eating, but I'm not using them by the looks of it because they're a little bit spotted. You'll see here, and these are actually nice ones to be using for applesauce. Get a little rotten spot, but we'll cut that off. So I've washed these apples up already, and even if you get these apples from the farm, I still recommend washing them up. So I make a vegetable wash for most of my fruits and veg. So I'm putting a big tablespoon, usually I would use a little bit less than that for more apples, but that's okay, of baking soda. And then we're going to add in a little bit of vinegar, maybe a quarter cup. It's going to foam up a little bit, which is okay. That's exactly what we want. This is going to help lift everything up. And I'm going to add some water to this. I'm going to add like lukewarm, not hot, but lukewarm water. And we're going to let those soak for a few minutes and get any wax or pesticides or anything on them off. So just soak them to cover, and we're going to dunk them around and let them sit for a little while. Okay, so these have been soaking for maybe 10 minutes. So if you can see on the top here, this scum that's on the top. So this is all wax and kind of yucky stuff from the apples. So this is why we want to wash these. So I will dump this out, give these a really good rinse off, and add them to my other apples. And then we're going to get to prepping, and I'll show you how simple making applesauce can be. Okay, so we're back, and we're just about to prep the apples. So again, they're all washed, get all that yucky stuff off. So the process I'm going to be doing is using a food strainer. If you don't have a food strainer, you need to peel and core these apples. Otherwise, if you do have a food strainer, all you need to do is take the core out and the stem. So I'm just going to take that out. The other option you can do, if you have a melon baller, just go in and melon ball that core out as well. So that works just as easy. So cut in half. There we go. And you're going to take the melon baller, core that out, throw it in the bowl. Take the stem off, throw it, and core. So we're going to continue on with that. If you don't get it all, it's not the end of the world. This is probably the easiest way to do it without using too much flesh. So I'm going to continue with the rest of these apples, get these here all cored, and put them in the bowl, and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so I've got the apples peeled and cored. This is only half of them. I've already done the other half. And all I want to do is quarter these. So these apples needs to be in quarters. I don't want to do too big because we're going to cook these down a touch with some water, and I'll get to that process as soon as we get there. They will soften up a bit, so we want to get these basically cooked through, not to mush, but just to, soften up a little bit. So when they go through the strainer, what will happen is by being a little bit small, this is a bigger apple, so I'm going to do a little bit smaller size. We want to be sure it's going to fit in the strainer to push down and get that pulp out, which again I will show you at the next couple of steps. So I'm going to continue on with these, and we'll get that pot ready to get cooking. Okay, so I've got all the apples in there. This has filled my pot right to the top. So you want to use a thick bottomed pot if you have one. So I want to make sure that also when you're cutting these that they're a uniform size. So I'm going to cover these just to the top with some cold water. So we're just going to keep filling this until we get to the top. And what we want to do is cook the apples down until they get cooked and softened in the middle. Not mushy soft, but just so they're breaking down. They're easy to pull apart, and I'll go from there. So I filled this up with water, and you can see if I push the apples down to the fill line. So once the apples start flowing, you've basically got the apple where the water level where you need it. We're going to turn this on, and we're going to bring this to a boil. So we want to. Sorry, I said boil, but technically a simmer. So we're just going to stir these around periodically. This is going to take some time. When I get to this stage we need to be able to start putting these through the strainer. We're going to come back and get that process started. We'll see you in a minute. Okay, so we're back. The apples are cooked to where I want them. As you can see, these are kind of falling apart. They're pretty soft. This is exactly what we're looking for. So I've had to split it between two pots because unfortunately the one pot started to overflow. I guess with the apples do, suck up some of that water. So I'm going to turn these both off. What we're going to do is we're going to strain them. So I'll give you a little quick process of that and show you my setup. So this is my setup. So I've got colander in the sink to strain. This will be for scooping my apples out. This is for putting them after they're strained in here, and then we're going to scoop them with this one here into the attachment on my KitchenAid. Now I have the attachment. A lot of people that do tomatoes will find that they can use the strainer that they do tomato sauce with, and that's kind of a hand grinder. So if you have one of those, that'll work as well. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have this under here, this on the bottom. We feed the apples in through the top. We're going to tamp them down with this handy dandy attachment so we don't, you know, I don't end up chopping my fingers. So we tamp that down. The apples will go through. All the applesauce will come out strained lovely here. And out the end, I will put another bowl on here, and that's going to capture skins, any seeds I may have missed, or any core bits I might have missed. And you can see in here is the strainer. So we're going to get a nice fine strain. Now, like I said before, once that's done, sorry, as well, then we're going to just put it in this pot here, and then we'll transfer it to the big pot afterwards. So remember, if you don't have a strainer, and I'm doing a big batch here, but you can do as small, as much, or as little as you want. It's basically the same process. If you decide that you don't want, or you don't have a strainer, not decide, but if you don't have a strainer, you can cook these apples. Like I said, take all the skins, stems, seeds, everything out, chop them in uniform size, cook them in the water or in a pot with a little bit of water and some lemon juice. And then what you're going to do is you're going to smash them down. Either if you want a little bit chunkier applesauce, you can just smash it with a potato masher, or you can take it and put it in through a food processor to get it to the texture that you want. So I'm going to get some of these fished out and we'll start our process. Okay, so I strained my first batch of apples here, and there's quite a bit of moisture in them. So part of this moisture, we can squish some of this to get some of it out now. And you know, we don't want too watery of applesauce. So we get the worst of this out here by squishing it down. And it doesn't matter that it's squished because this is going to be going through that strainer, like I said. So once that's done, we're going to let that sit for just a couple of minutes. And you know what? I'll pop them in the bowl here. So we're going to keep this over in this bowl here. All right, and we're going to continue to strain until I get a full bowl, and we'll get to the actual processing portion. Okay, so we're going to get this processed. I have some apples in the top, and we're just going to push these down. We've got the KitchenAid on number 4 speed. So we're just going to continue to push this through. You can see the applesauce here is coming through. So this is what we're looking for. You see that lovely applesauce, nice texture. Now we're going to cook this down a little bit. You can see at the end, my machine is spitting out all of the excess. So I'm going to continue on with all of the apples, which is quite a bit. So it's going to take some time, and we're going to come back and see where we're at. Okay, so just a little tip here. So you can see I put through the first bit of processed the apples here. Something my mother always did, and I'm going to do, is she always took these excess bits at the end. You can see there. This is all the bits, the cores, the skins and whatnot. There's still apple in there. So she put hers back through. So I'm going to do the same thing. So we want to get that all in there and be sure that we don't miss anything. I'll put the rest of this back in with the next apples we're going to put through. And as long as it's gone through at least once or twice, you know that you're definitely getting all of your apples. So we'll just continue on with this. So as you see here, see if we get some more sauce coming out. There we go, I'm going to push that through. And as you can see, got a little bit more sauce here. So we're just going to keep going through here, and the stuff that comes out the end is going to be drier looking, and that's actually a good thing because we want to be sure that we got every little bit of apple that we can get our hands on. So you can see there that's already a little bit drier than what this is here. You'll see this is a little bit more I put in the top. So I'm just going to continue on with this until we're done with all of the apples. Okay, so I've got all the apples strained. I put the waste through again, those little bits of pieces that were skin and core. What I'm going to do now, I know it doesn't look like as much. This is a smaller pot. This was the pot I was full of apples, and this is the smaller one here. So I'm going to heat this till they're hot all the way through. and then I'm going to put them in the cans, and we are going to water bath them. So I'm going to get this up to heat, and we'll come back. Another thing here too, just so you know, if you decide when you're making your sauce you want to add any sugar, this is the point you want to add it in. This is why we're bringing it to full heat. Also, if you want cinnamon in there, you can add cinnamon. Personally, I just do it plain. Some people do put a little bit of lemon juice in to keep a lighter color, but I don't find that it gets much darker than this, and I'm okay with that. So if you want to add any additions into it, now's the time to do that. So again, we're just going to bring this to heat. I'm just going to continually stir this because we don't want it burning. And as soon as that is nice and hot, we'll come back. All right, so we're back. I have my applesauce all heated up, and everything is ready and set to go. Let's see here, I've got my lids side here. Ta-da-ta-da. All my jars and my applesauce. So I'm going to fill these up to about 1/2 inch from the top. Now I am going to water bath these, so if it cools down a little as it goes, it's not the end of the world. Okay. So we want to fill these to shake it to about that point there. We're also going to use a knife at the end to pull these bubbles out. I'll show you real quick how that works. Butter knife out of here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this, and we just want to poke it to the bottom to get most of the air out. I know you're going to have a few bubbles still, and that's not a big problem, but just don't fill the jar past that point, okay? So I'm going to continue to fill these jars. Again, we're going to wipe the edges real good. We're going to take your flat lid here, put it on and center it, make sure it's centered properly. Put your finger on and twist. So we're going to fill up all the jars, see how many we get, and then we're going to water bath them. So I ended up with a dozen jars of applesauce. These are 500 ml jars, and here on my table I have another 2 500 mils and 2 250 mils. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean that's going to still last quite a while. So these here, now remember that's a 1/2 bushel of apples. So we want to water bath these. So this is basically what's going to process them to make them last longer than, you know, a week or two. This way you can keep them on the shelf without having to be refrigerated. Whoop, and I think I just broke a jar there, so we're going to check that and come back. Okay, so see, I have changed pots. What happened was the water in the other pot was boiling, and I think I had a little bit too high, and the temperature of the applesauce was not as hot, so it made the jar actually crack and the bottom fall out. So this is the results of that. So this is, you know, you learn as you go. So this jar, broke, all the applesauce came out, so I've had to rinse the jars off, and I put in fresh water. So I'm just going to finish topping these with water here and bring them up to a gradual boil. And then when they're up to boiling, we just want to make sure these are covered too, about 1 centimeter above. So I'm going to bring that to a boil, and it will bring the temperature of everything up slowly so nothing cracks and breaks. And I'm going to get my other pot on and do the same thing with the last few jars I have over here, and we'll continue on. I'll let you know when these are all set. We'll take them out and go to the end a little bit of the process so you know how to deal with them when they're all finished and cooking. Okay, so these are all done. I've now taken a dozen out of the pots. We process them for 20 minutes. And hope you enjoyed coming to my page again to see what we're making today. So be sure to leave a comment, subscribe to the page, and tell your friends. And if you want to come back or give me some ideas of what else you might want to see me do, 2 types of soups or canning or just a meal in general, we'll see what we can do for you. Appreciate you joining me. Have a wonderful day, and you take care. I hope you try this recipe soon. Bye-bye.